Your little real estate game ends here. Those words burned themselves into my mind. I could still hear them clearly. They would not go away. They came from my brother-in-law, Dorian Kestrel. He was sitting in the front seat of the courtroom, the place for the person who is trying to win. He had a proud, happy smile like he already knew he would win the fight. He had whispered those mean words to me just a few minutes before. Right before the court hearing began, he walked into the room with his family. He passed me by very quickly, just for a moment, and then kept walking. I didn't even get a chance to respond. But before I continue, hit the subscribe button and tell me where are you watching this from, and what time of day is it? The bailiff, a tall man in a black uniform, announced loudly, "Court is now in session." Judge Honoria entered the room, her robes sweeping behind her. She had a calm but serious look on her face. Dorian had chosen the perfect moment to insult me. He wanted to make me feel small, weak, and defeated before the hearing even started. Next to him, my sister Isolde smiled proudly. Her smile was the kind that says, "I am on the winning team." My parents, sitting in the back, nodded stiffly. They acted as if they were agreeing that the house and everything else should belong to Isolde. Everything was going exactly as they had planned. Dorian's lawyer, a tall man with slicked back hair and shiny shoes, stood up. He began to tell a story. But it was not the truth. It was full of lies. "Miss Callista Marin has strong mood swings," he said in a slow, serious voice. "She is sometimes calm and smart, but other times she is emotional and careless." He spoke like he felt sorry for me, but it was fake. "This contract," he continued, "was signed when she was in a calm state. At that time she said, 'This is a vacation home for the whole family,' and she signed it freely. But now," he said, his voice getting meaner, "she is in an unstable state and is trying to take back her promise so she can keep the valuable house for herself." It sounded smart, but it was cruel. They were saying that because I had moments of struggle or sadness, I was not capable of making decisions. But because I had signed the paper at the right time, it meant I could not take it back. They were pretending that 8 years of my hard work meant nothing. They acted like I had spent all that time buying houses like a silly, careless woman, without thinking or planning. And worse, they were trying to tell everyone when I was sane or crazy, only in ways that made them look good. Dorian looked at me and smirked. His eyes said clearly, "We control your story. We decide what is true and what is false about you." This is what they called everything I had built. My little real estate game. I sat there quietly. I did not speak. I watched their act. Judge Honoria looked down at the contract they had submitted. She scanned it carefully. Then her eyes stopped suddenly on the address listed. A hush fell over the room. Everyone went quiet. Then she slowly looked up and met my eyes. "Miss Marin," she said, her voice calm but very serious. "This address, this is one of the 12 properties in your real estate portfolio, correct?" I nodded. "How interesting," she said. "I would very much like to review the rest of your holdings as well." The air in the courtroom froze. Dorian's smile stiffened and disappeared a little. Isolde's face turned pale. Even our parents looked shocked. Their mouths opened slightly, but they could not say anything. Just moments ago, their lawyer had been overflowing with confidence. Now that confidence had vanished. It was like a balloon that suddenly popped. Dorian's face still had that ugly, frozen grin, but it no longer helped him. Isolde looked back and forth between the judge and me. She could not believe what was happening. Our parents could only stare. Their plan was crumbling before their eyes. They had truly believed their own story about me. They thought I was poor, reckless, and about to ruin my life. They thought I was someone who could never handle money or make smart decisions. That illusion was shattered now. I remembered a memory from 8 years ago, and it stabbed into my heart like a sharp knife. I was in my parents' living room. It was big and fancy, with expensive furniture and shiny decorations. My father said, "We have decided to stop paying for your college tuition after this term. Isolde's wedding is expensive, and honestly, investing in you any further would be a waste." My mother spoke right after. "That's right, Callista. You have no talent. You should find someone suitable as soon as possible and settle down." At that moment, I understood something very painful. In this house, I was the first one to be discarded. My dreams, my hopes, my hard work, they meant nothing compared to my sister's wedding or my parents' image in society. At the very bottom of that cold despair, I made a promise to myself. I would depend on no one. I would let no one decide my worth. I would not ask for anyone's help. Money would be my armor and my sword. It would protect me. It would give me power. That was when my little real estate game began. But it was not a game. It was a lonely, painful fight. I studied economics and law on my own. I lived in libraries. I worked many part-time jobs at the same time. I forced my way forward like I was carving a path through a dark forest. While they laughed at me and mocked me, I bought my first small apartment. I saved every penny I could. Then I saved for the down payment on the next one. I kept going, quietly, unnoticed by anyone. But I never stopped. I moved forward steadily without fail. I pulled myself out of those memories and returned to the courtroom. My lawyer, Mr. Thaddeus, gave me a calm nod. It was time to strike back. He rose slowly to his feet. Unlike my family, he was calm and confident. He opened a big, heavy briefcase and took out a thick stack of neatly organized papers. Just looking at them made the single fake contract from Dorian look tiny and meaningless. Judge Honoria, Mr. Thaddeus said loudly and clearly, I would like to explain the asset portfolio of my client, Miss Callista Marin. The first property she bought was 8 years ago. A small studio apartment in the Old Town district. The down payment was saved entirely by Ms. Marin through working many jobs at the same time. I glanced at my father in the gallery. His face showed confusion and fear. I remembered the day I first told him my plan. Real estate, he had said, laughing. Callista, that's not work for a woman like you. It's a dirty man's world. You'll be taken advantage of and chewed up in no time. Drop it now. My father had tried to crush my dreams. He had laughed at my efforts. Mr. Thaddeus continued. The second property was bought 14 months later. It was a small office building in the downtown commercial district. The purchase was made using the rent money from the first property and additional savings from Ms. Marin herself. The third property. With every property Mr. Thaddeus listed, the color drained from Dorian and Isolde's faces. Inside their heads, they were frantically calculating how much money I actually had. They were starting to realize that the woman they had sneered at for years had quietly built a vast empire. Judge Honoria leaned forward, listening carefully. This was no longer a simple family argument. The court was about to see the portfolio of a single, invisible power player, a woman who had quietly, yet decisively, shaped the city's real estate market. And the fourth property? The judge asked. Mr. Thaddeus paused, turned the page, and continued. Fifth, sixth. When he said the sixth property, I instinctively closed my eyes. That property had caused me the most pain. Shortly after I bought it, a huge problem appeared. A structural defect, a mistake in the building that nobody had told me about. The cost to fix it was far bigger than I expected. The bank refused to give me more money. For the first time in my life, the word bankruptcy felt real and terrifying. For 2 months, I lived on one slice of bread and coffee per day. I slept maybe 3 hours each night. I had nightmares constantly. I was completely alone. I could not ask anyone for help. I fought every day, groping through a dark tunnel, not knowing if I would survive. But that pain and despair made me stronger. I ran to the library and read textbooks about building codes and structural mechanics. I gathered estimates from many different contractors. I negotiated with them personally. I rebuilt the repair plan myself and managed to cut the cost by 30%. That experience changed me. It made me more than just an investor. It made me a businesswoman capable of handling anything. Today, that very property is one of the highest earning in my entire portfolio. The building that once brought me despair had now become a powerful weapon, shattering my family's last remaining hope. I slowly opened my eyes and looked at Isolde. Her lips were trembling. She clutched Dorian's arm as if she had seen a ghost. Dorian could no longer act confident. He just glared at his own lawyer, clearly thinking, "You have failed us." Mr. Thaddeus moved on to the 7th and 8th properties. A whisper passed through the courtroom. The bailiffs, the other lawyers, and even the spectators were shocked. This was not just a simple family fight. This was a revelation of power, skill, and hard work. I had quietly become someone who shaped the city's real estate market. I did not look away from my parents. My mother, Susan, clutched her handkerchief tightly. My father, Richard, went from confusion to anger, and then to pure humiliation. He realized that I had succeeded far beyond him, without him even knowing. I remembered the holidays at home. Whenever relatives came over, my father always introduced me the same way. "This is my eldest daughter, Callista. Plain girl, no special talent, but kind." That was never affection. That was control. That was a curse. He defined me as harmless, weak, and incompetent. He wanted to keep me under his control. Whenever Isolde brought home her rich husband, Dorian, my father would say, "Learn from Isolde. A woman's happiness comes from finding a good man." But I learned differently. I learned that happiness and power could come from hard work, courage, and determination. And now, 8 years of struggle, pain, and perseverance were finally paying off. My success destroyed every mean spell they tried to put on me. Just by living my life, I was showing that their rules and ideas were all wrong. That's why, in their world, they wanted me to be poor and sad, so their little world could feel safe and comfortable. They wanted me to feel small, unimportant, and weak. But I didn't. I worked hard every single day, even when nobody believed in me, even when everyone laughed behind my back. The courtroom was very quiet, so quiet that I could hear the sound of Thaddeus turning a page. It was like a drumbeat announcing the start of something big. "Ninth property," he said. His voice was calm but very strong. Every word he said felt like a hammer striking the walls of all the lies they had built. It felt like the start of my big, quiet revenge on everything unfair that had happened to me. Then he said, "The 10th property, downtown district, 15 Riverside Avenue, a building called the Phoenix Lofts." The moment he said that name, everything in the courtroom changed. It was not just quiet anymore. It was a quiet filled with shock and awe. People froze in their seats. Some reporters quickly took out their notebooks, writing fast. Everyone knew what the Phoenix Lofts was. The Phoenix Lofts. Anyone who knows business in this city knows that name. Years ago, it was an old, falling-apart building. People were scared to go near it. The city even called it dangerous. It was so full of crime that even the police didn't spend much time there. Most people avoided it like it was cursed. But then, someone bought it and worked very hard to make it beautiful again. That someone was me, Callista. The Phoenix Lofts became a shining building with bright lights, fancy restaurants, art galleries, and offices for tech companies. It became one of the most famous and popular places in the city. That project was the biggest risk of my life. I put almost 80% of all my money into it. I spent countless nights awake, worrying, planning, and solving problems. Some nights, I could barely sleep because I was thinking about what might go wrong or how I could make it perfect. But I never gave up. I kept working brick by brick, idea by idea. And finally, one night, the first tenants moved in. That was the moment all my hard work was finally noticed by the world. For the first time, people saw that I was smart, capable, and hardworking. Newspapers and magazines praised the mystery investor called T. Marin. No one knew it was me at first. But that recognition, even though it was anonymous, gave me courage. It made me believe I could do even bigger things. I looked at Dorian. His face was pale, almost white, like he had seen a ghost. Isolde's face must have changed too. They realized something very important. The fancy French restaurant that Dorian loved for his dates? It was on the top floor of the Phoenix Lofts. Isolde's favorite boutique shop? It was on the ground floor. The world they thought they owned as customers, they didn't. I owned it. I, Callista, the woman they had always looked down on, had created it all. That truth hit them like a lightning bolt. It shocked them in a way they could not ignore. Judge Honoria squinted. "The Phoenix Lofts," she said quietly. Even her quiet voice sounded serious. Everyone in the courtroom could see it. The dots were connecting. Everything was starting to make sense. She raised her hand to stop Thaddeus from reading the other properties. She didn't need to know more. The point had been made. She looked sharply at Dorian, Isolde, and their lawyer. "Counsel," she said, "you said that Miss Callista Marin, your client's sister-in-law, makes bad choices and spends money recklessly. But look at the facts. She owns and runs the Phoenix Lofts, one of the most successful projects in the city, plus at least 9 other buildings that earn money. How do you explain that?" Her voice was calm but very sharp, like a sword cutting through lies. Dorian's lawyer opened his mouth, trying to explain, but no words would come out. He looked confused and worried. Then Thaddeus gave the final, crushing evidence. "Your Honor, there is one more property." He held up a file. It was the last piece of the puzzle, the Grand Majestic Theater. This theater was very old and loved by everyone in the city. A few years ago, it was about to be demolished. People thought it would be destroyed forever. But someone saved it and made it beautiful again. That someone was me. I personally funded the restoration of the theater. It was hard work, and it took a lot of planning and love for the city's history. Thaddeus continued, "Miss Marin paid for the theater's restoration herself. The city even gave her an award for it." He handed the certificate to the judge. Can someone who is careless, reckless, or bad with money really do something like this? It takes careful planning, hard work, and a love for the city's culture. Everyone could see the truth. The story that I was reckless and careless fell apart like a sandcastle in the rain. My 8 years of hard work spoke louder than words. Thaddeus's voice became even sharper. "Now we can see that Ms. Callista Marin is very capable, and helps the city. So why would her own family lie about her? He paused and looked at everyone in the courtroom. Their goal was to take my properties. But if I own 12 buildings, why did they care only about one? That one vacation home. I remembered the terrible phone call that started all of this. Thaddeus held up a document. This is an article from a fancy magazine. 6 weeks ago, this vacation home was listed as a secret, amazing place. The owner's name was hidden. The very next day, Mrs. Isolde Kestrel, the defendant's sister, called Ms. Marin. She said, "Hey, Callista, I heard you bought a fancy vacation home. Isn't that amazing? But you're single and have no kids. Why are you keeping it to yourself? Our family should be using it." That was not a suggestion. That was her trying to claim the house as theirs. During that call, I said no. I refused. And just 3 weeks later, they filed this lawsuit. They used a fake contract and told lies. Now everything made sense. Thaddeus said, "This lawsuit was never about taking care of the house. They saw the vacation home in a magazine, realized it belonged to their sister, and out of jealousy and greed, they tried to take it. That's all." Dorian screamed, "It's a lie. There's a contract. Callista signed it." But no one believed him anymore. Judge Honoria glared at him. Her eyes were sharp and cold. She picked up the contract slowly, like a teacher about to explain something very important. "Several interesting points here," she said. Thaddeus spoke. "Your Honor, we had experts check the handwriting and the paper. The signature is fake. There's a 98.7% chance it is not hers." Isolde gasped. Dorian's face was red with anger and frustration. Everyone in the courtroom could see that the signature was fake. It was obvious who had tried to cheat. Thaddeus went on. "And the paper and ink? The ink is new. It came out 3 months ago. But the contract says it is a year old. Do the plaintiffs own a time machine?" A quiet ripple of laughter went through the gallery. People couldn't believe how silly the other side had been. It was not even a joke anymore. The plan to steal from me had completely failed. The forgery was proven beyond any doubt. Dorian and Isolde were pale, frozen, unable to say anything. Their lawyer buried his face in his hands. His career might have ended at that moment, just because he had been involved in this foolish plan. I watched quietly as everything fell apart. This is what happens to people who try to take what belongs to others. Dorian and Isolde couldn't say a word. They were completely defeated. Their faces showed fear, anger, and shame all at the same time. Everyone in the courtroom knew the truth. I felt calm, strong, and proud. 8 years of hard work, lonely nights, and believing in myself had finally paid off. All the lies and jealousy had been crushed by the truth. All the years they had tried to make me feel small were gone in one day. I had won. Not just in the courtroom, but in life. The Phoenix Lofts, the Grand Majestic Theater, and all the other buildings I owned were not just properties. They were proof. Proof that I could achieve anything, no matter how much people tried to stop me. Proof that hard work and honesty always win over lies and greed. The judge looked at Dorian and Isolde one last time. She shook her head slowly. It was clear she had made up her mind. At that moment, I realized something important. Success is not just about money or buildings. Success is about showing the world who you really are. And no one, not even your own family, can take that away from you if you work hard and believe in yourself. I looked around the courtroom. The reporters were writing furiously, trying to get every detail. The people who had doubted me were finally seeing who I really was. And for the first time, I felt completely free. All the pain, all the struggles, all the lonely nights, they were worth it. I had proven my truth, and nothing could change it. In the gallery, our parents were shaking. They looked scared and pale. For the first time, they had to face the truth. Their son-in-law and their daughter had done something very wrong. They had lied and tricked people in court. They had tried to cheat the law to take something that was not theirs. The pride and respect that my parents had tried so hard to keep for all these years, the pride that they showed to their friends and neighbors, broke into tiny pieces right there in the courtroom. Judge Honoria slowly looked at the papers and reports in front of her. She read each page carefully, making sure she understood everything. Then, she put the papers down on her desk and looked at me. Her face had changed. It was still serious because she was a judge, but now it also looked kind and human, like she could understand how hard my journey had been. "Ms. Marin," she said, "I am sorry that you had to waste your valuable time on such a silly claim." Hearing a judge say sorry was amazing. Nobody expects judges to apologize. But she did. It showed me that she understood the unfairness of everything that had happened to me. Then she added, "If you are willing, I would like to hear directly from you." I want to know what you have done in the last 8 years and why your family did not know about your amazing success. All the evidence is here. The legal victory is already yours. I want to hear your story in your own words. This was the final stage in the court process. I was not there just as a victim, but as the hero of my own story. For the first time, I could tell the truth about everything that had happened to me. I could finally speak about my struggles, my victories, and the hard work I had done alone. I slowly stood up from my seat. Beside me, Mr. Thaddeus, my lawyer, gave me a firm and encouraging nod. I took a deep breath, trying to feel calm and strong at the same time. Then I looked at the faces of the family who had betrayed me, laughed at me, and tried to take everything from me. It was time to bring this farce to an end, and I would do it with my own words. First, I spoke to Judge Honoria politely. "Thank you for your consideration, Your Honor." Then I turned to the witness stand and spoke to my family and everyone in the courtroom. My voice was steady and clear. 8 years of struggle, working completely alone, had made me strong. I was ready. The reason I never told my family anything was very simple. They didn't want me to succeed. I saw my father and mother flinch when I said this. They knew it was true. 8 years ago, I told my father that I wanted to start investing in real estate. I told him I wanted to buy houses, fix them, and rent them out. I told him I wanted to work hard and make something of my own. He laughed and said, "You have no talent. You'll be taken advantage of. You will fail." My mother said, "A woman's happiness comes from finding a good man, not from making money or having her own success." Instead of believing in me and supporting me, they gave me the role of the incompetent daughter, the one who couldn't do anything right. It was easier for them to think of me that way. When I bought my first small apartment, my sister Isolde laughed at me. She said, "Who would ever rent a place that is old and dirty like that?" Her husband, Dorian Kestrel, also looked down on me. He called me a pathetic single woman and laughed at me while I worked tirelessly to make my life better. I paused and looked at them, one by one. Not a single person could meet my gaze. They wanted me to fail. Deep down, they expected me to be poor, miserable, and eventually come crawling back to them for help. They wanted me to obey their rules and live exactly the way they said I should. But I did not. I worked quietly and steadily. I built my life piece by piece, without anyone helping me. I worked hard and believed in myself. And now, my success proved that everything they had said about me was wrong. Everything they tried to force on me was false. So when they learned about my success, they did not celebrate. They did not say, "Congratulations. We are proud of you." Instead, they tried to steal everything I had worked for. They wanted to destroy me and take my achievements for themselves. My words were calm but full of truth. The courtroom was silent as everyone listened to me. The forged contract that they submitted, I continued, was not just a piece of paper. It showed their desire for me to be exactly as they said, foolish, reckless, and incapable of accomplishing anything on my own. It showed their ugly wish that I would fail and need them. I turned to Judge Honoria. "Judge Honoria, regarding their claims that I was mentally unstable, I have something to say. Yes, I may have felt scared, lonely, or sad at times. For 8 years, I walked this path alone. I was misunderstood by everyone. I endured ridicule from my own family while building an empire from nothing. There were countless nights when I felt my heart might break. But I never gave up. I strengthened my voice. Not a single decision I made was made without careful thought. Every one of my 12 properties was acquired with careful calculation, strategy, and unshakable determination. I built my life with my own hands. Redeveloping the Phoenix Lofts and restoring the Grand Majestic Theater were not acts of luck or chance. They were investments in this city and in myself. They were the result of hard work, planning, and courage. Finally, I looked straight at my sister Isolde. She was crying. But whether those tears came from regret or frustration over her failed scheme no longer mattered to me. What they wanted was a single $1.5 million vacation home. What I was protecting was my life, and all that I had built over the past 8 years. These 12 properties were my empire. They were my life's work. When I finished speaking, the courtroom was completely still. Only the echo of my words lingered in the air. After a long, heavy silence, Judge Honoria finally spoke. Her voice no longer sounded merely like a judge. It carried the solemn weight of human dignity. "Miss Callista Marin, thank you for your courageous testimony." She then turned to the defendants, my sister Isolde and her husband Dorian. Her eyes were serious, stern, and full of justice. "Miss Isolde Kestrel, Mr. Dorian Kestrel, your actions go far beyond a simple family dispute. You knowingly used forged documents and filed false claims to deceive this court. You attempted to unlawfully take another person's property and destroy her reputation. This is an egregious act of fraud. Her words were sharp, deliberate, and strong, as if she were carving them into stone. Accordingly, this petition is dismissed in its entirety. Furthermore, the allegations of perjury and fraud in this case will be formally referred to the prosecutorial authorities. A sharp clatter rang out. Dorian's lawyer's briefcase fell to the floor. Dorian himself barely managed to stay upright. Isolde let out a broken sob. Then, Judge Honoria's piercing gaze swept to my parents in the gallery. Mr. Richard Marin, Miss Susan Marin, you did not take the stand. Yet, throughout this charade, you nodded in approval and even applauded, clearly endorsing the plaintiff's fraudulent actions. Such behavior is an insult to this court and amounts to admitting complicity in this malicious scheme. Your responsibility will also be pursued by Ms. Marin's counsel in civil court. My parents froze as if struck by lightning. Their excuse that they were just sitting there no longer worked. Their ruin had been sealed. Following my testimony, Judge Honoria's rulings marked the beginning of the end for them all. First, Dorian, the ringleader of the scheme. He was sentenced to prison for perjury and fraud and was immediately taken into custody. The man who had laughed arrogantly in court was dragged away by the bailiff, unable to resist. His career, pride, and wealthy lifestyle all ended in that courtroom. My sister Isolde received a guilty verdict with a suspended sentence. Though she was spared from going to prison, the punishment was as devastating as a social death. Her friends turned away from her. Invitations to parties stopped. Her husband was in prison. Her luxurious mansion was confiscated, and the life she had so desperately tried to live, wealthy and respected, was taken away in the most humiliating way. As for my parents, they lost the civil suit brought by Mr. Thaddeus. They had to pay a lot of money for being involved in the fraud and lying under oath. But that was not all. Every cruel thing, every harsh word they had ever said to me was made public. The local media branded them as toxic parents who were jealous of their daughter and tried to ruin her life. Their social standing, the respect they had fought for, crumbled. Their high-end furniture business lost customers, and they quietly sank into ruin. Haunted by regret and guilt, they would spend the rest of their lives blaming each other, trapped in a prison of their own making. I obtained permanent restraining orders against all of them. My 12 properties were placed under strong trust management. From now on, they had no legal way to interfere in my life. They simply faced the consequences of their own greed and envy. There was no place for them in my world anymore. My future began now, built on the 12 properties I had fought so hard to protect. These 12 properties were my fortresses, my achievements, and my life. Nothing could touch them. Nothing could take away the life I had built. I had won, not just in court, but in life. Every step I had taken, every hard night I had endured, every moment of loneliness had led me to this moment. And now the future was mine.